Hola, hello, hello, and so on. Um, good evening. It's the 15th of May 2020, and before I will update the situation, the overall situation of my queendom, with the review of the honesty and symbolism, let me read to you what it was, where the queendom was in 2017, and it actually went to the court of law, to the court of justice, um, um, and it went there in a different way from the way that it normally does. So the idea is, I need to reach the justice because I'm the innocent person. And this is crystal clear. So this is a special case where the innocent person has been attacked by criminal people, and the criminality is exploding because the person is innocent. So, and the same concerns the untruths confronted with the truth. And because the whole thing is so filled with injustice, I decided then to take it as high as it takes to have the justice. And the idea is that I put it in that, you can call it a channel, or I directed it. So it cuts through all that is on the way. And it will be going there until it reaches. The idea I had was a syndicate. I had an idea of the syndicate that was in the Middle Ages, or at that time, and the concept I had was that these were people who were pure in their values. So there was no perversion of the truth, there was no perversion of law, there was no perversion of justice. It was, total purity. And I believe, I have this idea, this awareness that such people existed, and they are close to me anyway. So this is how I put it in the court of justice. Where will it arrive at the justice? And as an introduction, I will read you what I wrote about Agnipolitania. It was still called Agnipolitania then. I changed the name in 2019. The introduction. So I have not reviewed it even. I will read to you what it was, how it was exactly defined in 2017. The noble queendom of Agnipolitania, my emanation, all other claimants are frauds, is more than the Agnipolitanian Academy, just as I am more than my educational and study line in life. Even if the line in my case is far more abundant in life than in other cases, still the Academy is the royal pearl. The Faculty of Fine Literature and Arts binds the two areas as a natural development of life. What stands out in the methodology of active and passive participation, that is study and creation, assuming philosophical works are literature, fashion or design is fine art. In debating nature and nurture, it adds neighborhood. The faculty, debating nature and nurture, that is the concept from Romanticism, where people wanted to answer the question of our personality or our way of life, the way we live, behave, think, and so on. If it was dependent on our nature, that is unchangeable in a way, or on nurture, that is what we have eaten, so to say, and obviously it is a metaphor, but perhaps not only a metaphor, perhaps other things are quite important too. So I added to this debate neighborhood. The Faculty of Superb Education creates big cultural projects that, that include methodology, that include mythology, language, history, and culture. It aims at counteracting indoctrination through powerful education. It is based in real-life experiences and produces own handbooks. The cognitive framework includes a paradigm shift towards the metaphor of spectacles or glasses and own notions of the Matryoshka perception, the multi-level structure of life, Putnam's water, Einstein's error, and spiritual extraterrestrial ontology. Okay, so this is quite full of concepts. Basically, it is about, you know, when you learn something, you usually are put in some organization of the knowledge that holds certain ideas for truths, and they are like anchor points. So you basically move within the area, and there are also certain ways of thinking. So you are used to thinking that way and not any other. For instance, if you think of languages, there are different alphabets. So in English you would go from A to B, and in Polish you would go from A to on, and in English you would go A, B, C, D, and in Russian you would go A, B, W, G, unless I made a mistake in translation, but then someone will correct it. So this is what I mean by certain patterns of thinking, certain ways of thinking. You think this way because you are in the alphabet. And in the same way you can think about anything in life. I have created my own rules, so to say, concerning knowledge and how we learn, how we perceive the world. When I talk about learning, I also talk about what we observe and what we can actually see, what we put our attention on and what we neglect, and then what all sorts of things that happen on the way. So, for instance, flying, there was a sentence, a typical sentence in the study of language, in linguistics. Flying planes, oh no, I cannot put it like that. Flying planes is dangerous. No, I cannot give you this example because I have forgotten it. But basically, let us imagine that this is a correct sentence because I want to give you the idea. Let us imagine that this is a correct sentence. I cannot think of the correct sentence right now. Flying planes is dangerous. This is singular, so you know that it's about you being the pilot and flying a plane. But let us imagine that it is also correct to say flying planes is dangerous instead of saying flying planes are dangerous. When you want to say that when planes are flying, it is dangerous. So you know, this is the idea that you hear the sentence that you hear two sentences that sound exactly the same, and for some reason you choose one reading or another. Or when you read also with synonyms, where you, for instance, the sentence apparently um, this woman I see in the picture now looks is a woman. This apparently this person that I can see in the picture now is a woman. So how do you understand apparently as the first thought? Is it which definition you choose if there are two completely different ones? One is that obviously this person is a woman, and another is it seems that this person is a woman. So which one do you choose? And all sorts of things like that. So all that is somehow related to all that education that you have. And when you change the school, you must get a different education. And you never think about the fact that you are actually in the school. So in politics you may be thinking of it, but even in politics, if you go from one school to another, you can have differences. And the paradigm is a set of rules organizing the whole field of cognition, that is learning, from the very basic assumptions, axioms. So in ontology, in philosophy, which is the knowledge of what is, what it is like, how it relates to other things that are, the obvious difference would be between the mechanistic world and the spiritual world. So you can believe that you are a spiritual being, or you can believe that there isn't anything like a spirit, or is materialistic, physical. And this is an axiom. I mean, you can check it, but you assume that I am a spiritual being, then it becomes an axiom. And you never question it, actually. But when you start questioning it, you learn further. And a paradigm is having this basic truths and then rules that organize the whole process of learning. And then I name a few of the ideas that I'm not going to elaborate on now, because this is not what I'm talking about. But what is important is spiritual extraterrestrial ontology. Which means that I believe that we live in this vast universe or universes. They may be called differently, they may look different, whatever there is over there. And there are other beings living there, and they are spiritual. So even if you deal with, if you have in science fiction the concept of machines, I believe that there's the spirit behind the machines. The legal lab works on terminology and codes, promotes legal education and formal legal auditing, looks for solutions safeguarding the 5 inviolabilities: the inviolability of identity, ownership, the body, home, and correspondence. Develops special rights, for example, spiritual or moral rights, and studies problems: discrimination, chronism, public persons, harassment, IT crimes, digital sensor-linguistic programming. That is my concept. Developed from neuro-linguistic programming, where you are supposed to respond with your nervous system to a certain stimulus that comes in the language. So here it is the response to some sensual impulse. Or memetic engineering among them. Memetic engineering is a concept I developed from the idea of a meme. I think this was Richard Dawkins who introduced it, and I treat it as part of experience, and you can have the compositions of which you obviously know, but if someone just looks at the knowledge we receive from books, it becomes new. So making it a part of education, it seemed quite important for me. Surveillance, security, data management, and more. The Faculty of History is rooted in the transplanetary ontology, where extraterrestrial tribes interact with Earthians, and so we have various civilizations, God being a different dimension. So the transplanetary ontology has to do with the axiom that there is life over there, out there, happening among, between the planets, and this and I believe, I have the concept, for me, they are tribes. So the ancient tribal organization of life in Africa, for me, is a reflection of those extraterrestrial tribes. But I believe they are far more advanced, and maybe some are very primitive too. And I believe that they actually interact with us Earthians. And so we have various civilizations. So the idea is that we are not only different here on the planet Earth, that we are actually connected with different extraterrestrial tribes. So we are not alone indeed. God being a different dimension, and I believe that God, the spiritual beginning, the first cause, is at the beginning. So it comes, it's not the material world, it comes from the spirit. I am interested in countries, their identities, speeches, and diplomacy apart from historical narratives, law, religions, symbols, languages, and extraterrestrial supremacies, histories of ideas, some of them field-specific, that is, decorum or irony, some interdisciplinary. Not that is, but for example, excuse me. Some of them field-specific, for example, decorum or irony, some interdisciplinary, for example, life or time. So, histories of arts, herein fine arts and crafts, sciences with technologies, herein methods and inventions, trade and the development of economies, histories of icons, for instance, political figures, histories of problems, for example, terrorism, and histories of places with a vista to possible connections between the Earth and intelligent life in the outer space. So now some English, please. I am interested in countries, identities, speeches. As you may have noticed, language is very important for me. So language, in my thinking, is a real power, the use of language. And I believe that speeches are very important, even if the politicians do not really mean to do what they say, because they create a certain postulate. So they organize life in some way. And I also believe that if you say something, it acquires a life of its own. Identities, speeches, and diplomacy apart from historical narratives. Historical narratives have to do with, for example, the Polish idea of Poland's relations with Russia and the Russian idea of Poland's relations with Russia, or the Muslim idea of the Muslims' relations with Christians, and the Christian idea of the Muslims' relations with Christians. So obviously they have their own narratives, so they tell the story, and they tell the story differently. Of course, it changes within the community too, because in Poland we also have different histories of Poland, that's obvious, but generally as Poles we believe in certain things, and Russia believes in different things as far as actual facts go. And this is at the level of what story you are told, what tale you repeat. Law, religion, symbols as something that means something different, something more from what you see. And it is also important that symbols usually have many meanings. So this is not only one meaning that comes to you, but this is an opening to a different world, so to say. So for instance, why is it so important? For instance, if you take the concentration camps, which got the symbol of the swastika, and this is something done to the symbol of happiness from Hinduism. So you can obviously see that India was targeted, and I believe that what they did to the symbol might be an analogy to what people do to the Holy Cross when they put it upside down. I'm not sure if this is the case, but I believe that there might be something here. And I don't know, perhaps in your countries you learn about it, but my attention was not drawn to it at school. So only then, when I learned that there was anything like that in India, on those Hindu temples, I understood that what we learn about the Holocaust and the fascism is not is a deficient picture of what it was. And languages, well, here you probably can think of it because you live among many cultures, so you probably know that people think in different ways. For instance, about time. This is the simplest example. When you start learning English and you learn English tenses, then you obviously acquire a new way of thinking about time. And extraterrestrial supremacies. So this is connected with what I said before, that well, there was Egypt and there was China and there was South America, and and we are not alone. Histories of ideas. So this is the perception of history, where you don't, obviously you look at it chronologically, but you don't look at it as the sequence of events or the sequence of monarchs or presidents, but you look at the idea and see how the idea was changing age after age. And these ideas can be field specific, that is related to a certain field. For instance, decorum or irony. So these have to do with literature, and while decorum probably also with fine arts. and it is about things fitting together, so to say, being in harmony. So, you know, uh, for for instance, nature and you know, the sound, the natural sounds in nature do not go together with, I don't know, with heavy metal, for instance. Um, so this is, there is no decorum, because this is mechanistic and nature is natural, and so on. Although you have lightnings and thunderbolts, I guess, in heavy metal, but then this is not, I mean, these are different worlds. Irony basically is about distance. So it is not only that you say one thing and mean another. There are a lot of things involved. Once I said that the greatest irony you can have probably is saying the truth that everybody takes for a lie. So, you know, you have this distance of between the person who says the truth and the people who receive it as a lie, and they all act believing it is a lie. And you know, when you look at it, it's a shock. Some interdisciplinary, that is having to do with many areas of knowledge. For example, life or time. So you can study, you can think of life and what is life in literature, what is life in psychology, what is life in medicine, what is life in biology, what is life in physics, what is life in what is life in artificial intelligence, for instance, and time. And you can view it also chronologically, that is in the sequence, as you know, from year to year, what was first, what was next, and what came then. Histories of arts, here in fine arts and crafts, sciences with technologies, here in methods and inventions, trade, and the development of economics, histories of icons. So what I meant here by an icon, for instance, political figures. What I meant here by an icon was a kind of well, it does not need to be static, but stable. A stable definition of something or someone. And when I say definition, I think of the origin of the word. So if you define something, you put some limits to it. So it is this and it is not something else. And it starts here and ends there. That kind. And it has this nature and not that nature. That kind of thing. For example, political figures. Histories of problems. For example, terrorism. So, you know, not looking at terrorism and not really knowing what you are talking about, but viewing it as a historical process and viewing it as a problem. So, okay, so this is the problem. So first it was that, and then it changed a bit, then became that, and so on. And histories of places with a vista to possible connections between the Earth and intelligent life in the outer space. So, for instance, places like Jerusalem, or other places. It can be great battlefields. So what happened in that particular spot on Earth, on that particular spot on Earth. But these that do not, for example, there can be places where, I don't know, education goes great. Why was it Nicholas Copernicus here in Poland, in Krakow, that you know, said it was um, the planet Earth going around the sun, and not the sun going around the planet Earth. Correct? I hear that I'm getting signals that this ontology that is the what is and how it is related is being questioned now. Well, perhaps there is some point in it. We shall learn. The Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences is devoted to the study of the physical and the spiritual in a scientific way, starting with observation through hypothesizing into more advanced methods and skills. So basically, for instance, mysticism. So, okay, there is a spirit, and then where it is still the spirit and the truth, and where it is physical, and where there is perhaps some manipulation. So, you know, observation is very important. And hypothesizing, that is saying, okay, so I make a statement. Let's say I can say that there is a twin planet, like the planet Earth. So this is a hypothesis. And I'm starting to work on this hypothesis to see if it is true or if it is not. But generally, this is my science is not intrusive. So you know, no experiments on animals that could have some adverse effect on them. It is forbidden. I forgot to mention it because it was obvious for me. And I also have this belief of knowing, of us being given to know. So I'm not really, I'm not really the on the side of the people who ate the apple. If I were in the paradise, I would probably ask God. If I really wanted to eat the apple, I would probably ask God for permission. And well, if he would say no, I would say okay. But generally, I believe that we are given to know what we are ready to know. So I don't have this rapes on knowledge or anything of the kind. I believe it comes naturally, and if you live in truth, a lot comes. Yes, are groundbreaking. For instance, spiritual genes, extraterrestrial connectivity, transplanetary life, interspatial physics, cross-systemic entanglements, prisms, brains, spaces, mimetic engineering. So, spiritual genes. For instance, I'm not sure about my physical genes. I mean, you know, the genetic code. I'm not sure if it is royal. So I don't know if I have any royal ancestors. But I'm pretty certain that me as a person, the spirit, has such ancestry. And that basically means that my great 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 grandma or great 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 grandpa was a king or a queen. Extraterrestrial connectivity. That is my belief that we actually are connected, not in the physical sense, but we have this contact, which has nothing to do with routers or anything physical at all, with extraterrestrial life, transplanetary life. I also believe that it is possible that we live, for instance, that I am here, and there's another me that is not another me actually living at the same time on a different planet. And the people I meet here are the people that I may be in a different relation, with whom I can have a totally different relation on a different planet. So let's say, I don't know, here on this planet, I am fighting a war, a deadly war with someone. And on a different planet, we are great friends, or even lovers. Well, maybe not lovers, because I'm a virgin, but you know, a totally different relationship. And it creates a mess, because it's it's crazy, simply. Um, Interspatial physics. What I mean by that is that um, actually, for instance, um, I believe that our brains, this is a hypothesis. I believe that our brains have something that can synchronize with something that creatures or beings living on a different planet have to. And they may look totally they I don't know, it maybe they don't have bodies and maybe they have bodies. uh, Someone could say, oh yeah, that's the machine, that's the computer, or something like that. That's the artificial intelligence. But this is not what I mean. I don't mean that that we have an implant. I mean that this is a natural organization of life. So, for example, in our brain, if we can think, there is some life that thinks. That, I mean, we think, but there is, this potential, physical potential, that makes it possible to think. And I believe that something like that can exist elsewhere. And these are physical parts that are in some relation. And if something happens to my brain here, the part over there knows that it happened. And I also receive some signals if something happens to the part there. um, so this is a hypothesis. Cross-systemic entanglements. Um, this has to do with the first idea of the entanglement is that that two particles, if they are in the entanglement, they act in the same way. So in the same way or interactively, I'm not certain right now. So I will accept both possibilities. For instance, if there is a particle here in my room and there is a particle in China, and these two particles are in an entanglement, then the particle in my room behaves in the exactly like the particle in China. And it can also be that if I do something to the particle here, the particle in China will behave as if something had been done to it. Exactly the same thing that I did to the particle in my room. So I had this idea about the accelerator in Switzerland, where they break atoms. And imagine that the atoms are, for instance, entangled with the waters, and you get tsunami in Japan or in China, wherever. So this is just entanglement. And what I mean by cross-systemic entanglements is that it is not the system created, because you can talk about the systems created man-made, so to say. But what I mean by system is some way of organized life, like on the planet Earth. And there is, or in the solar system, or let's put it like that, in the solar system. And there can be some other system, perhaps another solar system, but perhaps a totally different system. And I believe that um, it is possible that what I told you about the particle in my room and in China can also be happening in the solar system and the other system that I have no name of and know nothing about. Prisms. Prisms are basically like filters. So you have, it has, for example, if you have some knowledge. For instance, if you had behaviorism in psychology, you believe that when there is a stimulus, there is a response. And basically, if you want to change something, you must condition a person. So you must repeat a certain stimulus and cause a certain response many times, and it goes on and on and on, and then whenever you have the stimulus, you will have their response and no other different response, exactly that response. And if you believe that this is true, then it is a prism. So whenever you observe life, you have it at the back of your mind, and it has an impact on how you see things, because it's below your awareness that stimulus leads to the response. And you cannot think, for example, that, I don't know, there's a stimulus, and the person receives a stimulus and thinks and decides how to respond. So you have this simple pattern of A leads to B. Why someone else can have the on the subconscious level, A leads to B1, B2, B3, Bn plus 1. You know, like in maths, when at infinite number of possible consequences of the stimulus A, of this simple. So you say hello, and you can expect someone to answer hello, but you can say hello and someone can answer, well, the sun went oh, someone can even say the sun went yellow or the sun went white, probably white. And you, what? The sun is always yellow or white. No, it is not. You know, that kind of thing. Because whenever you look at the sun, you know, you view it, and it is always actually white. So this is stimulus response. You look, boom, white. And this is a prism. Brain spaces. I believe that how was I thinking of it? I was thinking of it also in terms of different planets. That I believe that our brain has this connection, and I'm just not sure how. Because I always had the impression that I lived in a different space, so to say. Yeah, so maybe I can leave it as that. Of course, it has nothing to do with moving part of your brain there or here, but simply, um, having to do with our extraterrestrial. You may call them brothers and sisters, or beings, spiritual beings that have certain physical um, things, some of them living like brain. Memetic engineering. This might ring bells, but it belongs neither to Scientology, nor to Assangism, nor anywhere else. It is agnipolitanism, even if studying works or communications from giants, dwarfs, and in-betweens of the past, now and future. So, this is also organized in that way that there's a possibility that when you are in the Agnipolitanian Academy, you will actually study something or get some knowledge that does not exist yet. So this is really a paradigm that is, those basic assumptions and rules are open for many things that you may talk about, and a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a scientist, or a politician listens to you and says, well, you are insane. But not here, because here, I don't know, maybe it is this way. But there is this ethical condition of not doing anything that can destroy, so that can be harmful. So that's why it's very important that it is not intrusive. That you don't have the effect that you cannot reverse. So this is different from what they normally do in science. I maintain the sun is the sun gate, actually. Agnipolitania has extraterrestrial protection. The Academy, extraterrestrial guidance. I was pretty certain when I wrote it that Agnipolitania had extraterrestrial protection. And I'm not sure, because I should have been helped, and I haven't been helped. But I don't know, maybe this is for a reason. The sun is the sun gate. I actually believe that it is possible some extraterrestrial civilizations can enter our space, the space of the planet Earth, through the sun, even if it is so hard. And the Academy, extraterrestrial guidance. I believe that is still true. I'm not certain about this extraterrestrial protection, but I will keep on believing in it. The faculty treats symbolism, magic, prophecies, and rituals, and notions such as the music of the spheres seriously. But I do not practice any black magic, because it's, again, this is this innocent world, and I do not introduce evil. It does not see an end to any science, but I believe in the, in stories about the unicorns, and so on. It does not see an end to any science, For instance, speaking of mathematics, I acknowledge the unknown other, apart from symbols, equations, and processes. So I believe that there can be something in maths that we have not discovered yet, and we don't even can think of it, but it actually is, and has and works in maths. It's just not. It hasn't been discovered yet. And it has to do with what I was able to put on a sheet of paper when I drew. I drew something like that. So okay, this little spot here, this point, this is Agnipolitania, and there are starships above it, and these are the Illuminati. And then there are starships belonging to the ship, and the Illuminati were uh, violet, purple, uh, and navy blue, I think. And I don't recall it right now, but then this huge, larger than the Illuminati ship was green and pink, so it has nothing to do with pornography. And this was the ship that protected Agnipolitania, but not the Agnipolitania that went in the direction of, sexualism and so on, because this is not the Agnipolitania. This is someone doing damage to your life and your creation. Most concepts are richer than in traditional sciences. For instance, for example, the biological life would have the variables of the cyclical and spiral, progress and regress, development and change. So variables, that is some things that you can measure, and it tells you something about something. For instance, a variable can be this person can learn very fast. This person can learn 50 foreign words in 5 minutes. Or perhaps it is too much, actually, perhaps in 1 minute. And another person will be studying how many words was it? Were these 50? We study the 50 words for 5 weeks. Okay, so this is one variable, but then you can look at how they work, and what they actually achieve through the process of study. Because the second person can, take every word and, study uses, options, definitions, what it was in the past, how it developed, and what can usually, and what else you can use with the word. And you can also study how it was used in texts from, I don't know, the beginning up till now, and you have a totally different idea of the word, and you use it with a different power, because all that all that awareness is with you. So the cyclical and the spiral. Well, as far as cyclical, I put it here because of the concept of time. So this is simple, like seasons or certain things coming back. But as far as spiral is concerned, I had no idea. I just put it as an idea. Progress and regress. So are we actually progressing as a civilization, or are we regressing, that is going backwards? Development and change. From trendy ideas, I select teleportation, mirror cells, parallel worlds, postulates, and the ecosystem as key to modern life and the future of humankind or Earthian existence. Teleportation, well, this is from Star Trek. I have a book on it. I was to read it, but I never have enough time or enough space or enough attention. Miro says, uh, well, now it has become really complex, but if you don't have all this interference in life, it has to do with, for instance, when you are a little child and your mom smiles at you, your face reflects the smile, so you smile like your mom. But well, with all that has been done to us, I don't know if it still works. Perhaps it works. Perhaps our brains are very intelligent. But I also don't know if we can express what. Well, perhaps it happens anyway on some level under our awareness. But parallel worlds, that is worlds existing elsewhere, but in a way that is that corresponds or somehow reflects the world we know here. Postulates, well, that is actually a Scientology concept. A postulate is a causative thought, so it's not any thought. It's a thought that is supposed to have an effect. So if I say I want to kill you and I don't put this effect into it, it's not a postulate. It's I don't know, I'm so angry at you that I want to kill you right now. This is exactly how I feel about you. It does not kill you yet. But if I make the postulate, I want to kill you, and don't put anyone here because now I'm talking about the academy, and in my academy there is no place for war. And if I make the statement, I want to kill you with the intention of having the power of wanting to kill you and achieving the purpose of killing you, then it's a postulate. So it's very important whether this is just an expression of whatever or whether it is supposed to be the causative statement of the future that is to come. And the ecosystem that is well, environment protection is very important right now, but I'm not certain actually if the people who promote it know what they are talking about, because they are very modern. So they themselves destroy the ecosystem, and that is that's how I assess it. Ecosystem, it may be that they are creating new ecosystems, but you know, I believe in God and in the creation of God and natural things, which were perfect before we started destroying them. The faculty of health and beauty upholds a three-part idea of human beings and accents the spiritual health and beauty in the natural environment. The spirit, the mind, and the body are strengthened through diets and enhancements. Healthy life excludes sexual perversions like oral sex and sex without love. Well, this is Agnipoitanie. Apart from avoiding toxic people, thus non-kitschism. Non-kitschism has to do with what Alexandra Kitcha represents, and what she really represents, not well, she happens to be the person who has destroyed my life, so, and stolen a lot of it. So what she has stolen is not hers. Teacherism is stealing another's life. Life enhancement includes education, interaction with nature. The recording has stopped, so I decided to have a cigarette break. And I noticed, by the way, that the sound recording has a totally different tone, not only a different voice, but also a different tone from the one in which I'm talking, which is quite weird, but I don't know how it happens. But it does happen. Well, I'm sorry for that. You will probably not meet me. You will probably not meet me in person, or at least not in the body, to hear my natural voice. But well, whatever. I'll keep on recording. Actually, I wanted just to read it, but then I thought that when I use all those words, you probably and not explain it, you will probably stop listening to me, even if you were willing to understand at first. So that's why I'm stopping and explaining. Um, where were we? Life enhancement includes education, interaction with nature, um, fine arts, beautiful works and beautiful lives, active reading of biographies or autobiographies, Elizabeth I, Benjamin Franklin, Albert Einstein, Adam Mickiewicz, Marie Skłodowska-Curie, creating own works and life, books of virtues, manners and styles, designs, descriptions, exercises, dancing, martial arts, meditation, solitary walks, poetry reading, calligraphy. I didn't know at the time that I will be deprived of the possibility to do all those things through the damage to the body. So I organized it that way. Anything to explain here? Interaction with nature. Well, being with nature, and when birds talk to you, you can talk to birds, and so on. Active reading of biographies. It means that you read the biography, but you don't read it to learn. Like, I don't know, you have some facts presented, but you think of it and relate to it. So, this is not like someone was born on that and that day, and then he had all those great achievements. But okay, so he was born there, so he lived there. So what is this place like? Aha. So what I can learn about this place? Perhaps I can view some pictures, and then you learn that I know he achieved something, and you think, well, is it really an achievement? And you think, I don't know, whatever ideas you have, but you don't read the biography, and then you can, you can shine with all that wonderful knowledge, but you actually read it and think of it, and you have your own opinion, and you have your own thoughts, and so on. A comprehensive view and work in the area of the natural environment protection, habitats, ecosystems and biodiversity belong here. So this is the Faculty of Health and Beauty, and of course the environment is very important for health and beauty, even if you think of it in spiritual terms, as I do. So comprehensive view includes all and habitats are the places where certain animals or plants can live, and they cannot be changed, because then their life gets destroyed. So they are homes actually. A wood is a home. Ecosystems. So this is more complex because it has to do with who eats whom, not only with the trees giving some rest from the sun apart from oxygen. Biodiversity. Well, it is about what naturally is, not about the genetic manipulation or other manipulation, obviously. So I am not for these modern developments, even if some birds that have flown into my world were really beautiful. And there is no beauty without superb ethics. And this is very important in my academy, in my life. So being moral has to do with beauty for me. The Faculty of Finance is an exercise in systematic thinking, starting with the juxtaposition of development and environmental problems. Excuse me, not systematic, but systemic thinking. Systemic thinking is a thinking that makes it possible for you to see things which are possible. Again, is a thinking that makes it possible for you to see things that work in that way and not another, as a part of an order. Which means that if you do something in a different way, you will damage a part somewhere else, or more parts. Well, an optimist can say, I can improve it, but to improve it, you must be able to see what results will appear in, I don't know, let's say you do something in Poland, and Poland is a part of a system of all continents. So you do it in Poland, but it has an impact on Asia, Northern America, Southern America, the Latin America, Australia, Africa. And if you are capable, if you are able to think in the systemic way, you are able to know the consequences of what you do right now here on all those continents, because you are aware of how the system works. it is all connected. So whatever change you make in Poland has an impact on the life on all of those continents. Of course, what you do must be in the system and have the it must be important enough or have the reach actually. But the point is that you are aware that it is a part of a system. And that in turn will bring about further changes, because this is how the system works. The juxtaposition of development and environmental, I'm not too happy with that explanation myself. I don't know. Perhaps you can think of your own. Think of a system and think of the things that you can do that will have an impact on the whole system. Because this is what it is about, to be aware of the system. So, you know, not like, oh, I'm just here and who cares, but to have this awareness of the system. The juxtaposition of development and environmental problems. So on the one hand, you can have some development and you can be very happy about the new technology, but on the other hand, there are environmental problems that result from it. So if you do the bookkeeping, the accounting, you have gains and losses. And the Faculty of Finance in my academy treats environmental problems resulting from some business as a loss. My working metaphor for finance is water. It is an experimental conceptualization, the interrelated notion being the sustainable development. So conceptualization is how you think about something. So you can think about something in terms of something else. And this is not a new metaphor, of course. But if you think of the water as dirty, so let us imagine that you have the river of dirty money. So what happens on the banks of the river? And then on the other hand you have the sustainable development, which does good to all related parties, and it also will survive. The representative invention idea is the whiteboard mapping data changes from all over the world in statu nascendi, with the purpose of locating coincidences and analyzing them to have a global picture of life. So the idea is that you have this huge board, like you have when you go to what do you call it? Giełda. Stock exchange, and you have those huge boards. So you have such a huge board, and it's all white, and you have the whole world there. And let's say there was a terrorist attack in Africa, so it gets there immediately. And then at the same time there was, I don't know, someone sold his company, or perhaps not someone sold his company, which is huge, but actually many people started selling their companies, and it happened in America, in New York, for instance, and then suddenly the volcano in Iceland erupted, and in an hour Etna got active, and then you hear that there was a plane crash in New Zealand, and this all appears on the map together. So not only finance, but also other events on the world. And you also notice that actually this actor received his award on that very day. All sorts of things. So the ones I name are trade, banking, arts and antiques, inventions, entertainment, crime and corruption, drugs, wars, other. I view money interculturally. I am interested in culture, specific designs, meaning and values. Developments like Islamic banking matter. So I view money interculturally. Well, you know, it is about what does the coin, what does the smallest coin look like in the United States, and what does it look like in Malaysia, for instance. And then if you have paper money, whom do you see in the pictures and what is written there? Well, imagine, think of the United States. If I recall correctly, there's "We Trust in God" there. Or is it only the $1? Perhaps it's only the $1. So the satanistic America is rich, the satanistic United States are rich, and the ones who believe in God are at $1 or something like that. I don't know. I don't know about American money, but these are all the kinds of questions that can pop up in your head when you look at it. But there are, of course, also other things connected with designs, meaning and values. And then Islamic banking is really something that departs from the banking we know and accept as standard. So it is quite important to look into it and see what value does it really represent. The Agipolitanian PR lab focuses on the following problems: brand definition and development. Or perhaps here I won't have to explain that much. Brand definition and development. Preventing and counteracting incapacitation, that is, being made unable to act in an area of life through alteration, invalidity, crime, war, or other means of disablement. Through data communications, that is, information, education, fights, contacts, promotion. Foreign affairs, herein goal definitions, language, identity, dignity, honor, issues, gratitudes, and extraterrestrial interventions. Okay. Well, fights. Well, for instance, you know, when two people fight with each other, but they don't need to kill each other, they just fight in their communication with no physical damage done to their body. So it's on the level of language. So you said this and I said this, and oh my God, what happened? Well, you said this and I said this. So perhaps we can be nicer to each other, but it does no damage to our life, neither to mine nor to yours. Foreign affairs, here in goal definitions. So, you know, this about setting the limits and describing really the goal. So it's not important, it is not enough to say we want to be free. What do you mean by saying you want to be free. Language, identity, dignity, honor, issues, gratitude. Well, gratitude, a kind of gratitude is obviously the relation between China and Russia, because Russia was investing huge money in Mao Zedong. And not only Mao Zedong, but Russia was investing huge money in China. But then Mao Zedong became the leader and was supported. So there's the gratitude. Investigations. Data handling in terms of quality. So what do you do with the data? That is correctness. So is it correct or is it incorrect? Validity. Is it important or is it not important? No, sorry, not this definition, because there's importance then. So perhaps I will read it first. Data handling in terms of quality. That is correctness, validity, importance, sufficiency, completeness. So correctness. Is it correct or is it incorrect? And validity. Is it valid for this situation? Perhaps there is some piece of data, but it is not important for this particular situation, or it is crucially important because this is the essence. Importance. How important is it? Sufficiency. Is the data sufficient? And also in validity you have, is it still up to date? So I have the data, but this is not up to date. Sufficiency. Is it sufficient? So you can have some correct data, but you don't have, but this is insufficient. It does not give you the real picture. Completeness. Is it complete? So, you have the information, you should have 10 pieces of information, but you have only 9. And the 10 happens to change the whole picture. The information number 10 happens to change the whole picture. And analysis. That is interpretation of the quality data and conclusions. So, first you have the data. And you need to have the quality data, so correct, valid, important, sufficient, and complete. I will continue after I answer the phone. Okay, I'm back. So first you need to have the quality data, and you must know that you have the quality data. So you must be able to assess the data. Say, okay, this is correct, this is valid, this is important, this is sufficient, this is complete. Then, interpretation of the data. So you must know how to interpret them. And then, once you interpret them, you must be able to draw conclusions on the basis of what you have. So these are actually 3 levels. And you can have errors on each. And it is important that you know where you have the error. The problem of terrorism. Do you need an example? I don't think. I think you can find your own examples. But you understand it, right? First the data. Then you interpret the data. You get some picture, and on the basis of the pictures, you draw conclusions. 3 different levels. Someone can err in conclusions. someone can err in the interpretation, and someone can have not the quality data, which is the error. False data is incorrect data. The problem of terrorism as the last resort action viewed in a new diplomatic framework, wherein we have the three centers along a national line, namely the state, the law, the identity. The identity being a composite of the state's history, religion, aspirations, its contributions to the Earthian heritage, and interactive relations with other states creating mutual impacts. The law defining such areas as education, production, or daily life regulations in the network of international law agreements resulting from encounters between states that have their lines of the law and the identity, which informs about the real reasons for the Muslim terrorism. That is the endangered identity. I am under the superimposition of other interpretation, where the reason is what has been done to them physically. That is, what has been done to me is quite enough to decide for terrorism, and that is supposed to be the reason for terrorism. I still claim that no, it is not. It is the endangered identity that is the reason for this spiritual power, because many of the terrorists, I mean, Osama bin Laden was a sensitive person, so he loved walking, and I believe he was an alchemist even, which I have never read anything about, but this is my intuition. So what has happened that these people resorted to such means of fight, and then why do they do it? Normally we are given the argument of interest, money, and so on. But is it really what motivates people with that power? This is put in a quite a complex way, but I think that if you really want to understand it, you can stop the recording and get it in chunks. Of meaning, and then put it together. I look for solutions, but start with correct diagnosis and correct, valid, important, sufficient, complete descriptions. It is not about popularity, recognition, or liking. So, you know, of course I have not done it, but this is how this is what I wanted to do. This is how you prepare yourself for living, actually, because it comes from the spirit. So perhaps this is intellectual work, but it still comes from the spirit, from this that really motivates you. And that is what I wanted to do, and I informed the court of law in Krakow about it, because they got this. The prosecutor's office I don't think the prosecutor's office did not get this data, but they got some other data which was sufficient, which was correct, valid, important, sufficient, and complete. But this is even more, and this is what I delivered to the Court of Justice on the day when I had the interview with the court psychiatrist, the expert. So they had this data, these data. The Noble Queendom of Agnipolitania is a monarchy ruled by me, Queen Agnieszka Justitia I, the protectress of the pure value. So this is the pure value, what I have just read to you and explained. This is the pure Agnipolitanian value. Except that now I call my queendom Honestia, so this is the pure Honestian value. But in 2017 this was Agnipolitania. The protectress of the pure value, the guardianess of truth and justice, the virgin, the noble queen. I can consult the folk, that is the simple people of Agnipolitania who respect the Agnipolitanian laws, customs, morals, values and rules, and the council of sages, the Agnipolitanian wise, and the wise visiting the queendom on my invitation, never without one, as trespassing in Agnipolitania earns a capital punishment. Pardons are rare. Of course, this is imaginary. There are no Agnipolitanians yet, or Honestians now, but this is again what you imagine, what you create and hope for. Agnipolitanians uphold such values as virginity, truth, justice, nobility and honor. They consider their application to learning or study a holy obligation, honesty at work and in daily life routine. Agnipolitania is a spiritual queendom of white magic. I'm not sure if I did not get myself in trouble with using the name white magic. I think it can be associated with something that I did not have in mind, because for me white generally associates with innocence. So you know, priests, for example, wear white clothes, and I wear white clothes. So this is innocence. And I believe that there is a concept of white magic that means something totally different. So this is not what I meant. But you know, again, the same factor, the educational factor. You read about the white magic in the context, so it's obvious that it is the innocence that is not. Agnipolitania is a spiritual kingdom of white magic, mysticism, and own symbolism. The mysticism goes back to the ancients, the Middle Ages, Romanticism, and travels through the present time into the future. It is regal, but aware of other social strata. Imperial, but with a view of the individual. Poetic, innocent, mythical, artistic, humanitarian, magical. Symbolic. English, Polish, Egyptian, Mesopotamian, South American, African, Asian, Scandinavian, transplanetary, historical and historic, natural, cosmic. The Agnipolitanian Academy is the pearl that captures it all and sometimes thrusts forward to the non-Agnipolitanian world, presenting Agnipolitanian thinking and ways. It is a non-ridicule, friendly, supportive culture of the potentially ingenious, who uphold top ethical and scientific standards. The role, the space, the identity is not to be messed up with. And I was to present the symbolism, the reviewed symbolism, and I also wanted to read to you about the culture first, but it took me so much time that I will probably end at this point. Or perhaps I can read the culture. Agnipolitania is a spiritual queendom. I am a virgin living in sexual abstinence. Virginity is a high value, both the literal and the metaphorical, implying the purity of the heart, mind, life, intention, and purpose. This is the realm of the innocent. I live in truth, honesty, and justice. Therefore my names and attributes. The noble queen Agnieszka Justitia I of Agnipolitania, the guardianess of truth and justice, protectors of the pure value. I am in connection with the divine, the God or the God quality reigning the whole cosmos, the multiple universes beyond our current perception. In religious terms, I was baptized to be a Catholic. However, as I was maturing, I was acquiring new insights into the realm of spirituality and human spiritual heritage. I connect these not only with the religions, but also with works of arts, crafts and cuisine, literature and science, as well as the simple and refined life. Nature, deserts, forests, plains, mountain peaks and valleys, rivers running to seas, seas becoming oceans, elements, planets and stars, the cosmic vastness, the thoughts we think, the lives we live. The noble queendom is the queendom of peace, love, calm, goodness and kindness. Still it is a queendom, and as such I must protect her with all my strengths and powers. Sadly enough, my peaceful life has been interfered with by enemies of unspoken cruelty and heartlessness, merciless, brutal, bestial, spiritually blind, morally retarded. And so I found myself in the state of war. That necessitated the need to become a holy warrior, evoking the ancient times of the Crusades and noble fights for dignified life. They broke the code of conduct and the laws so clearly presented as the ruling principles of Agnipolitania, violating not only my peace and quiet, but the generally acknowledged rules of the non-Agnipolitanian world, defined as the inviolability of correspondence, the inviolability of home, and the inviolability of the body. The former oasis became the battlefield, the sacred temple of my body, the torn, cut, impaired, desecrated, polluted, poisoned. Similar attacks have been launched against my Holy Mother, the innocent, non-political, modest, loving and caring, non-allied, peaceful, seeking no war, avoiding struggles, intimate and private. The unforgivable has piled up. That changed the circumstances, terms and conditions. The noble queendom of Agnipolitania has sent calls of extraterrestrial and divine support. Our life is in danger. In the meantime, we live what we can live, hoping for a lucky resolution and return of our previous peaceful life of love and kindness. So, to give you the idea, I think I will record one on symbolism, which was my plan for today, tomorrow, if I feel well enough to do it. Thank you for your attention. I hope it clears up the overall picture a bit.